All right, welcome everyone to tonight's Option Series live stream over at the ESS Twitch channel. We've got a really wonderful performance for you tonight. We've got Nat Baldwin live from Portland, Maine here, who's going to play some solo music for us. And after his set, we're going to have a discussion. Real quick reminder, if you think of any questions while you're watching this set, you can throw them in the chat and we'll try to get to as many questions as we can during the discussion. And also feel free to donate. All of the donation proceeds go to the artists. So definitely slam that donation button tonight. I will keep it pretty short and leave it there, but please welcome Nat Baldwin.
Thank you.
All right. Tremendous stuff, Nat. Thank you so much for performing tonight. I'm going to give you a moment to hop on over to the discussion station. But I just want to remind folks in the audience real quick, if you would like to donate, it's an excellent thing to do. 100% of the proceeds from the donations go directly to Nat, and that's the same deal every week on the Option Series. Of the donations go to artists, and also if that performance sparks questions for Ask Nat, or if there is anything that comes to mind during the discussion, feel free to throw any questions in the chat, and we will try any of them as we can. So just a moment, switch over the tech setup real quick. But just again, thanks Nat for an amazing performance, and also I want to give a very quick shout out to Kelsey for the camera work. That was very tremendous. Just excellent to get dynamic during that set. So thanks, Kelsey, very much for that. All right. Can you hear me now? Oh, let's see. All right. You there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Nice.
How you feeling? Thanks so much for that performance. That was tremendous.
Thank you. Thanks. I guess I can't see if people are here, but whoever stuck around and watched that, thank you so much. And yeah, thanks for having me. I wish we could have done this in person, obviously.
Yeah, that's right. That was one of the early sets on the Option Series that was supposed to be an in-person performance very early on in the season this year. That, of course, was canceled in the early days of the COVID-19 quarantine. So I guess just getting right off to some questions real quick. I just wanted to see if you could describe how you put together some of the techniques, like describing your process for this most recent work of yours with Autonomia series of recordings that you've been doing, and also what, if anything, inspired you to kind of come back to solo bass improvisation work from more song-based material, and I guess like what that process was like for you.
Yeah. Yeah. How did it happen? I guess I'd been thinking about, like, getting back in. I mean, in a sense, this kind of music never really left. Like I was always, it just sort of was, the surface or the primary output of my solo material for a while was songs, and that's probably how people would know me or know my solo music. But there's always sort of a through line throughout that too, that that incorporated some of the extended technique or sort of improv related work that I started out doing, which is that's sort of how I really fell in love with music, and so yeah, in a sense, it never left, although it was buried beneath the surface in a sense, but yeah, why did it come back to the surface? I hadn't written songs in a little while. It had actually been, I wrote the songs for In the Hollows back in like 2011 or 2012. I did some touring on that, and then I kind of got into some different stuff. I actually started writing fiction. That's
amazing.
That sort of, so it was like a transition from, I was just reading a lot of like contemporary literature, more experimental work that was messing with form and messing with sound a lot, just language as sound, and that was really inspiring to me. I started writing some of my own stuff and got super immersed in it, and really wasn't making much music at all. So my like creative solo output was writing for a few years, and I did make a short little collection of stories called The Red Barn. And that was just like a few years of work of like really, that's kind of all I was doing. And then I went back to school. I went back and I got an English degree, a BA. I never finished college when I started, back when I was college age. So I think as I started thinking about getting new solo music together, it was kind of through getting into literature that was messing with and sort of reminding me in a way of sort of more. I mean, even though it was with language, it's sort of interesting. It's like with language, and that's what songs are. You know, you're constructing lyrics. But it was sort of reminding me more of sort of abstract, more abstract sonic material. So yeah, I mean, I think through that, I just started listening to more. Again, I never stopped listening to it. You know, it's like, but I just started listening to that music that first inspired me a lot more, and actually I found a question popped up. Okay. Well, I can answer it in a second, but I found that bow, the bow that I'm using to prepare, mostly to prepare. Sometimes I'm using it as a primary bow, but the one that's like really ragged, and it's kind of broken. It has the little metal piece on the handle that you hold the bow. It broke up. I found it in my parents' basement, and that was sort of at the time that I was like, all right, I'm going to start making some music. I'm going to get back into weird music again, like totally, and see what comes out. And that finding that was actually huge, because at the time I thought like, oh, maybe I'll incorporate some electronics, maybe. And sort of what I always did before with solo music or just improvising with people, I would always sort of try to make the bass sound electronic, or sound kind of not like a bass. A lot of percussive stuff, a lot of squeaks and blips, and sort of angular textural stuff. But when I found that and started sort of shoving it in different places and messing around with that, that's when things sort of like really kind of exploded, as far as just creatively, as far as starting to put some stuff together. Sorry, this is the long. I'm bad at giving short versions of things, but
I'll go ahead.
I had a residency at Hewn Oaks, which is a little. I think there's four cabins on a lake in Maine, like Western Maine. You can see I think they're the White Mountains in New Hampshire, across the lake. And I actually got into it for writing, but I had no intention. Well, I think I don't know. Yeah, I can't remember actually when I applied what exact, but I knew definitely going there that I was going to be making music. So I'd already started getting some of this material together. So I had 10 days at this residency, and that's where, for the Autonomia 1 that came out with Matt Meelan's great label Shinkoyo earlier this year, that's where I put together all of that music. And yeah, I was at a residency, so it's like, and I was alone. I didn't really interact with the other people. I just you can practice 8 or 10 hours a day, but still have time to like make a slow dinner and listen to a long podcast and go for a swim and go for a run. Like, when you have all that time, it's really an amazing luxury. So, I was able to chill, but I was also able to, I was mostly just really focusing. And it was a very chill environment to do that. And yeah, so it came together really quickly in a sense. That was a 10-day residency. I came with a bunch of sort of sketches. And it's, I should stop soon, but it's as you can tell, it's sort of, a mixture of composition and improvisation. Certainly way more improvisation, but and maybe I don't even know if composition. There is structure, and those are based on as opposed to movements or any sort of linear. I'm sort of dealing with these sort of cells of sonic sort of textural material based on like a particular technique. Mm-hmm. And the ones that are sort of more composed or whatever, or more structured, there might be sort of, I might not know how I'm going to get to that next part. And that might be the sort of, I might be moving towards like a certain cue that is going to get me to that next part. And it was really fun putting together the set for tonight, because I didn't work that. I mean, I've been practicing a lot lately, but I didn't. I wanted there to be some surprise. I hadn't before, when I played one other quarantine concert that Matt put together, and I just played the set that I'd been playing on tour prior to the lockdown. I had done like a 10-day tour and was basically playing the Autonomy of One from beginning to end. And, obviously it would change from night to night, and I'd figure out different, it would be like fun and unpredictable, while still sort of having these sort of movements and these pieces, but moving a specific way. And this, I tried to have a sort of an outline, but I wasn't super strict about it, and sort of had a lot of different things floating around that could pull from, and of course, a bunch of other things happened along the way, which is the fun part. So yeah, so I think I saw
almost what my
oh, sorry.
I was going to say that almost answered my second question, which was going to be, how you think of your third, where I was going to go with it, of whether you set out each night a more or less work, or whether you're kind of just kind of having to solve the problem on the fly, so to speak. If you want to continue on, interrupted.
Yeah, you were kind of breaking up a little bit, but I think is what you said, sort of like getting from night to night, like having sort of an outline. And
yeah, I guess how you think about the formal aspects of any given set, whether it's laid out or completely spontaneous, or some combination of that. That's all. So you were already kind of going into it, but
yeah, no, but it is. It's so hard to play solo for anything. That's one of the things I love about it, just the challenge, and the fact that the bass is often more of a supporting role in traditionally. Obviously there's so much solo bass music at this point. But yeah, that's a fun challenge. So I think, I don't know, it's like if you're improvising, you're already kind of using a set language that you have been developing, and so I mean, there's still a difference, I guess, in approach, as far as like no outline at all versus having some structure, some sort of cues here and there. But I don't know, the outcome isn't that different in a sense. Like you know, it's like you're already dealing with a particular language, and even if there are some sort of structural elements, there will be some surprises, you know, given the nature of the structure, you know, of the techniques too.
Absolutely.
And you know, and reacting to the room, and reacting to I mean, your bass, you know, your instrument is a little different every night, and there's different things that kind of pop out that you can interact with in a way that I think is really fun. So I guess I just like sort of conceptually, especially with the challenge of playing solo. I like just you know, having these kind of pieces, and you know, as I said, they change from night to night. So that's the fun. That is the fun part. But also getting deeper and deeper into each technique, and how they can then just sort of morph and blend together in ways too. And you know, it's just one way to build a language, and it's really fun.
Question, real Ken, which is to kind of jump back a little bit. That you were kind of feeling some heavy inspiration from getting back into your bass, wanted to, which particular writers you referred to earlier that were super influential for you in terms of dealing with language and the sound of language and those types of things.
Yeah, I think I got that. I don't know, the connection is weird or something. I'm gonna go in this other room.
All right.
Woo! Oh, this is where we're taking care of these cats. This is where the books are, so I can like refer to them. I'm not gonna be able to say I'm drawing a blank now. Yeah. All right. Yeah, a lot of stuff from small presses, and a lot of stuff in translation. I mean, a lot of it was, I would sort of go by press in the beginning, and I would read writers and read interviews with them, make lists whenever they mentioned other people. You know, you sort of draw these connections. You realize that how similar these sort of small kind of DIY presses are, how similar they are to, you know, small labels, and, you know, the same way you get into music and you see how people are like connected. And so that was really fun. So yeah, like Calamari Press, I mean, they were the ones that ended up putting out my book, but that was one press that had some great stuff. FC2, Fiction Collective 2, and Action Books, like a poetry, and I don't actually read a ton of poetry, but they do mostly stuff in translation, and really amazing. But yeah, the Dalkey Archive, they do a lot of stuff in translation. Anne Quinn, Brian Evanson, Blake Butler, Sarah Rose Etter, Joelle McSweeney, Johannes Goranson, yeah, $2 radio stuff. Yeah, there's a lot. I can send some recommendations in the chat or something, or if anyone wants to talk weird literature after this, I'm game.
Amazing. I do want to backtrack a little bit. And I quickly ask, a couple questions about that. You got Braxton, and you want to describe a little time studying with him, and as otherwise, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm going to very briefly. Is that a little bit better?
Yeah.
Excellent. So I don't know if you heard the question, if I was breaking up too much, but just wanted to ask you a little bit about your time studying with Braxton, how you got involved with him, how you started studying with him, spending time with him, and if you could describe the impact that had on you as a musician or otherwise.
Yeah. So I was going to the Hart School of Music in Hartford, Connecticut. And I guess it was around I think it was the end of my first year. I saw like a sign, like a, like a little flyer that says like, that you see in a coffee shop or something, like, come to our rehearsal. It was called the Middletown Creative Orchestra. And I think Jack's, it was after, I think Jess Pavone was doing it, and Jackson Moore, some people that were just a little before my time in that area, who I then became close with after that. But it was Justin Yang who was running it at the time, composer. And I went, and one of the first people I met there was Charlie Looker, and he and I became very, very close friends. And that was the first time he was the first person to take me on tour, playing in his bands. He was the reason why I started learning how to read music. I didn't even really know how to read music when I started playing my senior year of high school and went straight to the Hart School. So I was like, had a lot of catching up to do. But that definitely accelerated my learning and motivated me to practice like a maniac. So so then Charlie was doing this like through composed stuff, and I also hadn't really played with a bow before. And so I switched my teacher at the Hart School to a classical teacher. And just became more close with Charlie and meeting some of the other Wesleyan folks. My second year at the Hart School, it became clear that I probably wasn't going to stay another year, and I was already at this point deep into Braxton's music. just some of the most intense listening experiences. I remember being home, I think between my freshman and sophomore year, and like it was one of the quartet recordings between 85 and 93. Like I think it was Santa Cruz 93, particularly intense moments, climaxes in that, and sustaining that level of intensity. And I was staying at my parents' house, and I was really conscious of how loud because it kept creeping up, and just like, so I would turn it down, but then just get closer and closer to the speaker, and it kept getting more and more intense, and to the point where I had it as quiet as it could go, but it still felt loud, and my ear was just pressed up against it, and I feel like at that time I just never, I mean, probably still, I never had any sort of like listening experience like that. Didn't know music could be like that too. All the different elements he was bringing together was pretty mind blowing to me at the time. Or I mean, it still is. But so then I applied to Wesleyan to transfer, but I mean, maybe I wasn't. Maybe I'm just making an excuse, but I did a really shitty job of, I did the essay the night before. My dad went to Wesleyan, like as if that, but I was like, oh, my dad's an alumni. Everyone loves Benny at Wesleyan. I don't know what I did for recommendation. It was just like I did and I didn't have great grades in high school. I was like a decent student, not great. So whatever, I didn't get in. So I was like, I'm just gonna move there, and basically like pretend I'm a student. And so that's what I did. I moved there, and just moved there with another friend, a great trumpet player, Brett Deshane, who and we were playing in a lot of groups there, and he was at the Hart School with me. So we moved there. Everyone just thought we were students. I asked Braxton if I'd go to his classes, and he was totally down. So I played in his big student orchestra, and it was just an amazing group of musicians there at the time. And so yeah, I mean, I wasn't like super tight with Braxton, but I went, I went to every one of his classes. He did a Sun Ra Stockhausen class, just a class on their music. Went to that, just one of these guys I almost like listening to him talk as much as I like listening to him play. Mm-hmm. Very, very captivating and inspiring. So, yeah. And who else was there? I mean, it was like Charlie Looker was there, Mary Halverson. The grad students were like Chris Dahlgren, great bass player, who's actually, his bass is the bass I was playing tonight was his bass at that time. I bought it from him a little while after that. Chris Dahlgren, Matt Bowder, Steve Lehman was there. He was kind of on another level. He was just on some other shit. That was like the end of his time there. Mm-hmm. So it was, and I just used the practice rooms there. They had really nice practice rooms, like pianos in them and stuff. And I just got a job that, just barely paid enough for rent and just didn't really spend money. I worked like 15 hours a week and just practiced like all the time, and then played in so many different kinds. Like I played in the school orchestra, again, like an experience I'd never done before. It was a super challenge. And then I played in Braxton's thing, and I played in all the graduate, concerts, and then we had our own sort of, me and Charlie or me and Mary would set up concerts on campus, and yeah, so it's just like a really, really, really inspiring, beautiful time. And I did go with the intention of reapplying. Like that was like okay, I'll get in with everybody, and be more intentional about my putting my materials together. Braxton did actually write me a recommendation, but then I for some reason, well, for a lot of reasons, but I decided not to reapply. And a lot of my friends were graduating. I felt like I got more out of just the year and a half I was there and not paying any money than I would have. I also didn't really want to start over in school at the time. I would have had to.
Yeah.
I would have had to, basically start over. And yeah, I was going through a bunch of personal stuff too, and I moved home, and I like quit music for a couple years after that. And what got me back into music was writing songs. And then that was sort of more the direction. So I don't know. Yeah, maybe part of this is like I feel like there's some unfinished business in that world or something. And as far as like connecting things to now, and I also I hadn't really, even in my solo music and playing with other bands, I would get the music together so that it could be performed, and sort of my practice time would be sort of like compositional, or practicing material for the bands, but I wasn't really like practicing. Like I wasn't really like deep into the bass in the way that I was, the way that I had to be to do what I was doing when I was younger. And so that's another thing with like getting back into it's like I like fucking love the bass again, and like have been and so I haven't felt this, and it's not to discredit anything else I've done, but I haven't felt this inspired and just excited about music since I first started with all that stuff, and that that takes it back to the Braxton
That's
time.
Beautiful. I'm glad to hear that, and we're all grateful for the the work that you're making right now. I wanted to take a quick second to just remind folks, if you're able to, if you're interested, please donate using the link that is in the Twitch channel there. 100% of the proceeds go to Nat here tonight. And also, if you have any questions that come to mind, feel free to throw them in the chat. I just have a couple more questions for you here. One thing I wanted to ask you about is, the amount of time that you've spent in New England in some capacity. And as an ex-Boston resident, I think Boston gets talked about enough. But I've always felt that there's a really kind of amazing, weird network of different music communities in the New England area, whether it's cities like Portland, where you are, or Providence, or Burlington, or southern Vermont and Western Mass, and kind of that whole zone of things. But I guess I wanted to ask you, what your relationship with that kind of weird, diverse music community, whether it's improvised music or noise or punk music, was that like a factor for you in staying where you've been and moving around the Northeast over the years, and what your relationship with that sort of landscape, I should say, of different scenes is?
Yeah, no, I love that all these sort of smaller places have their own kind of identity. So it makes sense that there's sort of like this, there's like the epicenter, there's New York, and then the places sort of just adjacent, just far enough where you're like getting away and going to a different scene, but you're still, it's still sort of like connected Northeast. So it makes sense that there'd be sort of these different scenes kind of splintered, and there's a certain kind of energy too that can, well, I think it goes both ways too, but there's a certain kind of energy that can happen in smaller places too. It's getting harder and harder in a way as everything. I mean, we don't need to go into this, but yeah, just how expensive everything is. It's like not that. It's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna move out of New York, so it's so expensive. But then you go somewhere, go up to Portland, and it's like not that different.
Right.
So like that element of it is like, people sort of getting out and going to like the cheaper place, like that's becoming harder and harder. But there's still the remnants of that, I think, and that kind of, the scene, and the scenes kind of fluctuate, I think, too, and that's interesting. Stuff going on in Portland now is pretty cool. Scott, IDM Theftable, is doing a really cool series, was doing a really cool series. And so I'd see a lot of stuff. Actually saw Carol Giannetti, played a show with Carol, and we were talking about you. She was speaking very highly.
You're the best.
And so Hollis is here. Whoa, cool. Providence, has always had that warehouse scene happening in the early 2000s or whatever, and that's sort of morphed, I guess. And but there's still stuff happening, and I don't know why I've stayed here. I guess, I really like it up here. I grew up about an hour from Portland.
Okay.
But I kind of like it, like everywhere in a way. Like I could get into living kind of anywhere. So like I not real, well, for example, like Kelsey is going to be transferring school next year. If school is happening. And so we will be moving, and I'm kind of psyched. Like I said, I love Portland, and there's some cool music and art things happening now, but there's cool things happening everywhere. So we might wind up in New York, we might wind up in Western Mass, maybe Chicago. I don't know. Let's see where. Yeah, but I love all those places, and having toured in different capacities for so long, I have some nice friendships all around. So yeah, I would miss Portland, but I would, I still have family here. I'd be back here.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to get to Hollis's question here.
Oh yeah. Hi.
Hollis says, watching you now, I was so struck by how your work is so physical. How do you think about your body as part of your composition and performance practice, especially with this more abstract work you're presenting now?
I was thinking about that today because I kind of was practicing like all day today, and thought it kind of went from the point of being like, oh, I'm just warming up, and but I kind of overdid it, and I was like, by the time the show came, I was like, oh, I've been playing like all day. Maybe I should have chilled a little bit. But yeah, getting some. It is really physical. I probably could do a better job of preparing, taking care of myself a little better as far as like stretching stuff. I'm sure there's some like very bass specific things that maybe I'll look it up on YouTube tomorrow or something. That's actually what I've been doing, is like looking at these like classical bass player techniques lately, and just going through their free lessons or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I have been thinking physically more how things are feeling, and yeah, I mean it's certainly a part of the work, in the way that the way the techniques flow, the way they're and the way I'm moving, and so it's almost like another. I mean, you have sort of the material and the sort of actual sort of physical matter of the just the wood, the horsehair, the different. I sort of think of those as just. It's sort of a body of like potential sound, and I'm the body that is then creating that sound, but we're doing that together, and we're sort of interacting together. It's sort of like a dance, and with this, and I'm reacting to it too. It's like I'm generating the sound. The sound is happening. Things are unpredictable. Things are intentional. Things are, so it's all this, all these things happening at once. And I think for the bass especially, and then when you're dissecting it sonically and texturally in the way that I'm trying to do, that kind of physicality will come out more, or is just, it necessitates it. So yeah, so that's another really, really challenging, but really fun challenge, really fun. Yeah, the bass is still a wild instrument.
Absolutely. I have one more question for you, and then we'll let you go. Have a nice evening. But I wanted to. I know it's a little bit loaded, but talking about where we're at right now in terms of time, we're all about 4 months into this completely weird reality of not really being able to perform music in the same space or be in the same space at all. And then, over the last month and a half, the various uprisings stacked on top of the weird quarantine that we've all experienced. I guess I wanted to ask, I've been thinking about this a lot myself, but I find that some folks who are musicians, when dealing with extraordinary circumstances, are either kind of repelled from their creative work and just want to dive into dealing with the reality, political or otherwise, of what's going on. And then some folks are kind of drawn more into their creative work and want to just dive into things that can kind of bring them joy or other, I don't want to say a distraction, but something that can kind of channel energy away from really difficult things. And know that's extremely loaded, but I just wanted to ask you if you have any particular feelings about that, whether these things kind of make you more or less interested in diving into your work as a musician, or it's the opposite.
I don't. It's kind of, yeah. It is. That is a loaded question. These are really bizarre, particularly bizarre times. Really exciting in a lot of ways too. The potential for new, new horizons is really feels like it's here. And I've been engaging as much as I can, and but as far as, I mean, so stepping back at the beginning of the lockdown, and I had just done a tour of this music, and had another one lined up, had a lot of plans for it. So the beginning was just sort of like dealing with the effects of that, the greater sort of problems in the world and whatever, and how it affects everyone else, but also how that was affecting me immediately. And I didn't play at all in the beginning. It just felt like I don't know, time was sort of erased, and that we were in this sort of weird dreamscape. And then I started sort of snapping out of that a little bit and getting and started working on some new music, and part of it is like if this is sort of like the reality for a little bit, like I want to be engaging with the things politically that I can, and I want to be doing my work musically that makes me feel alive and human too. And time can fly by, even though time is fluctuating now and feels sort of different in a way. Now we're sort of settling in a way of like, this is sort of like, who knows? I don't know when we'll be playing shows again. So with all these sort of questions, it just seems sort of counter. I mean, I see how it can, and I saw firsthand too how that can be overwhelming and stifling. But sort of coming to the point now where I'm like, all right, I'm ready to start making stuff again. But actually, what I've been doing mostly, spending, as when I go to I rent a little studio at a venue in town here, and I've just been wanting to practice like technique, and I'm mostly, other than going to the Heart School taking lessons for those 2 years, I'd never taken lessons other than that, and relatively self-taught other than those couple years of study. So I, even though I feel like I have developed this kind of complex language that I want to continue to develop, and that will inevitably evolve as I sort of want to go back to even deeper, and like just kind of get deep on technique again and practicing. And that's actually been, because that's sort of like, it's like, oh, I'm not putting pressure on myself to like write a bunch of new stuff. And I think that was like sort of the impulse, the sort of productive impulse like output, like, oh, we have this time, we have all this time now, like let's like I'm gonna like write 1 million albums, and like and I'm like I don't know if we need like I already have another like Autonomia 3 is can come out anytime. I have it done. I don't. I mean, those three feel pretty good, and I want to sort of like whatever the next thing is to be slightly different, or it'll be in line with that, I think point is I'm not gonna like make another solo record with the same kinds of like next month or whatever, and so yeah, but yeah, long story short, I basically just have been like getting back to practicing, doing some jazz stuff. I didn't get that far with jazz. I mean, I got to a certain level, but that's been fun. Just sort of pretending, or not, just being a student again, and that has been that's been really cool. And I think that the better technically, hopefully, the more potential for different kinds of things to emerge on the creative front. So,
absolutely.
So yeah, that's sort of that has given me some focus during this time, and I think that sort of makes sense if you think about how chaotic and unpredictable and just insane everything feels. Just sitting down and like playing a slow ass major scale like feels fucking awesome. Or just some long tones, or like just really zoning in on just the most subtle kind of sonic nuances of any kind of technical practice.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so that's been feeling good. That's been feeling good.
Yeah, I before we close it out, I just wanted to bring it back to something that you said in there that was really beautiful and certainly resonated and has echoed a lot of things that I've been thinking about of doing this creative work and doing it because it's humanizing and it makes you feel like an alive human being, right? And how you get caught up, kind of as my question I guess suggested, in this kind of like idea of you're doing your creative work and then you're engaging with the real world, so to speak, right, as two distinct things, but really like the act of doing something that makes you feel like a human being and helps you experience joy and emotion is like also an explicitly political, powerful thing, right?
Totally.
And I think that's something that I think we all can kind of tap into a little bit more. All right, I think we can maybe leave it there for tonight, but thanks so much for performing tonight. It was a really tremendous set and really great, fun conversation. I want to really quickly give one more shout out to Kelsey for shooting the set earlier. Things looked great, so applause to Kelsey as well. But thank you so much, Nat. We'll be back on the Option Series live stream next week. Joanna Matry will be performing some solo viola music, and we'll be having a discussion as well. So definitely come back next week. And if you haven't yet, hit that donate button, subscribe if you want to, and we'll see you all next week. Take care, everybody. Thank you.